The road less traveled often holds secrets. Their van cut through the deepening twilight. Trees, like skeletal fingers, clawed at the fading sky. Liam gripped the steering wheel. His knuckles were white. Beside him, Maya stared out the window. She watched the world blur into shades of gray and black. In the back, Chloe was trying to keep the mood light. She told a joke that no one laughed at. Noah was lost in his headphones. The soft beat a stark contrast to the growing silence outside. And Ben, ever the documentarian, was filming everything. He captured the nervous glances in the dark, encroaching woods on his small camera. They were urban explorers, or at least that's what they called themselves. They chased ghost stories, forgotten places. Eban Hollow was the ultimate prize. It was a town that had simply vanished from the maps. A place whispered about in online forums and cryptic blog posts. The stories said it was cursed. They said the air itself was heavy with sorrow. As they drove deeper into the forest, the GPS finally gave up. The screen went blank. No signal, it declared. A collective sigh filled the van. The last link to their world was gone. Now, only the winding, unpaved road remained, pulling them forward into the unknown. A signpost appeared in the headlights. It was old and rotted. The letters were barely legible, coated in moss and decay. "Welcome to Eban Hollow," it seemed to whisper. The words hung in the air, a promise and a warning. Liam slowed the van to a crawl. The tires crunched over gravel and fallen leaves. The sound was unnaturally loud in the profound quiet. The town was supposed to be abandoned, but this felt different. It felt waiting. A chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air snaked through the vehicle. Maya pulled her jacket tighter, her eyes scanning the impenetrable darkness on either side of the road. Some places are not meant to be found. It rumbles like distant thunder. They are left to the quiet and the dark for a reason. Eban Hollow was one such place. Its history was not written in books, but etched in sorrow and sealed by a silence that consumed all sound. The five friends sought a thrill. They sought a story to tell. But the story of this town was not one meant for the living. It was a tale told only by the shadows, and to hear it was to become part of it forever. The van rolled to a stop at what looked like the town's main street. Dusk had fully settled. Thick, low-lying fog crept across the ground. It swirled around the tires. It clung to the derelict buildings. Dark building silhouettes against a bruised purple sky. No lights shone from any window. No sound came from within.
This is intense. The silence was a physical presence. It pressed in on them, muffling even their breathing. Ben lowered his camera, a frown creasing his face.
The engine died as Liam cut the power. Even that was swallowed by the quiet. They stepped out of the vehicle one by one. Ben, Chloe, Noah, Liam, Maya. The air was cold and damp. It smelled of wet earth. It smelled of rotting wood. It smelled faintly metallic, like old blood or rust.
I don't like this. It feels wrong, like we're trespassing in a graveyard.
Noah pulled off his headphones and flinched at the sudden silence. The fog thickened. They could barely see the end of the street. The world felt shrunk to this one haunted road.
It's just an old town. His voice lacked conviction. He felt the oppressive weight, too. The sense of being watched by unseen eyes.
Maya walked a few steps away. Her boots made no sound on the damp asphalt. She reached out and touched peeling paint on a general store sign. The wood was cold and clammy under her fingertips. She felt a low vibration, a hum deep in her bones. This wasn't just abandonment. It was a scar on the world. Silence was the town's keeper. A blanket woven from fear and loss, laid over broken windows and splintered doors. The people of Eban Hollow had not simply left. They had been erased. Their laughter, their cries, their final desperate whispers, all consumed by the quiet. The friends felt the stillness but didn't yet understand it. They thought it was emptiness. They did not know this silence was full. It was listening, and it was hungry.
I'm going to get some establishing shots. His voice was tight with a mixture of fear and excitement.
He began to walk slowly down the street, his camera panning across the fronts of the buildings. The others watched him go, hesitant to follow. The simple act of separating, even by a few dozen feet, felt dangerous. Maya, however, was drawn forward by a morbid curiosity. She followed Ben, keeping a safe distance behind him. Her eyes were not on the buildings, but on the ground. She noticed small, strange details. A child's worn leather shoe lying alone in the middle of the road. A string of rusted keys hanging from a doorknob, swaying slightly in a breeze that didn't exist.
Whoa, guys, check this out. At the end of the alley, almost hidden in the deepest shadows, was a child's swing set.
One swing was moving. It swayed back and forth in a slow, steady rhythm. There was no wind. The fog around it was perfectly still. The rhythmic creak of the rusty chain was the first sound they had heard in the town. It was a lonely, haunting melody that cut through the silence like a knife.
It's probably just, an updraft. No one believed him. The movement was too deliberate, too rhythmic.
As they watched, the swing slowly came to a stop, as if its unseen occupant had just gotten off. An even deeper silence fell over the alley. The brief sound had only served to emphasize the profound, unnatural quiet that now returned, heavier and more menacing than before. This was their first true sign that they were not alone.
Chloe. Okay, maybe we should just camp in the van tonight. We can explore properly in the morning, with sunlight. Liam. Good idea. Let's not split up. We stick together.
Narrator, VO. As they made their way back, Maya noticed something else. Carved into the wooden frame of a post office door were strange symbols. They weren't letters or numbers. They were intricate spiral patterns, etched deep into the wood. They looked ancient, almost tribal.
Maya, guys, look at this. Narrator, VO. She ran her fingers over one of the carvings. The wood felt strangely warm to the touch, a stark contrast to the cold night air.
Ben, what do you think they mean? Noah, I've never seen anything like these. They're not Norse, not Celtic. They feel older.
Narrator, VO. As he spoke, a faint whisper seemed to drift from the darkened doorway. It was a soft, sibilant sound, like dry leaves skittering across pavement, yet it felt like it was right beside their ears. They all froze, flashlights snapping up to point into the black void of the post office interior. There was nothing there, just dust and deeper shadows. Narrator, VO. The whisper was gone as quickly as it had come, but it left an imprint. It was a seed of fear planted in each of their minds. The unspoken question hung between them. Did you hear that? The carved symbols now seemed less like a historical curiosity and more like a warning. A warning sign that had failed.
Liam. Okay, let's just take a breath. We're all on edge. That swing, the whispers, it's a lot. But we're safe as long as we're smart and stick together. Narrator, VO. The fear of being responsible was a heavy cloak. He was talking as much to himself as to them.
Noah, there has to be a rational explanation. Every ghost story has a source. Faulty wiring, infrasound, mass hysteria, narrator, VO. He listed the possibilities like a mantra, trying to ward off the supernatural. He saw the looks on his friends' faces. They weren't buying it. Deep down, neither was he.
Ben, muffled by camera. The atmosphere here is incredible. The fog, the silence. It's perfect. Narrator, VO. He was the observer, but for the first time, he felt a terrifying certainty that something was observing him right back. Its unseen eye far more powerful than his own.
Chloe. Seriously, guys, it's just an old, creaky town. The swing was probably just the wind. Narrator, VO. Her skepticism was a thin shield, and she could feel it cracking under the weight of the town's suffocating atmosphere.
Narrator, VO. She was an empath, highly sensitive to the emotional residue of people and places. It wasn't just the ghosts of the departed she was feeling. It was the presence of the thing that had made them ghosts. Narrator, VO. Guided by a morbid curiosity and a need to do something other than stand fearfully by their van, the group began to move deeper into the town.
Noah. A church is usually the center of an old town. If there are any records, they might be in there. Liam. Okay, but we go in together, and we leave together. Nobody wanders off.
Narrator, VO. The air that flowed out was stale and cold. The silence in here was different from the silence outside. It was heavier, more reverent, as if the space still held the echoes of 1,000 prayers and a final, desperate plea that had gone unanswered.
Chloe, whispering, I really don't like this. Narrator, VO. The place felt profoundly wrong. It should have been a sanctuary. Instead, it felt like a tomb.
Near the altar, Maya noticed a section of wall where the plaster had crumbled away, revealing something underneath. A mural, colors faded, but images still discernible. It depicted the townspeople, not in prayer or celebration, but in a state of terror. Faces contorted in fear, eyes wide, looking up beyond the frame.
And they're not praying to God. They're fighting something. This is insane. It's like they painted their own horror story.
Plaster near the bottom crumbles, a soft cascade of dust to the floor, revealing a new part of the image. Close up, spiral symbols at the feet, like those on the post office door. Close up, dark, reddish-brown pigment resembling dried blood. Tight on painted word, Umbra.
Umbra, it's Latin. It means shadow or shade, ghost.
The sound slithered through the air, coiling around them, a possessive, territorial claim. It was the sound of something ancient acknowledging that it had been seen. They had come looking for a ghost story, and they had found one. But they were no longer the audience. They were now the main characters, and the story was turning against them.
Why did you say the name out loud? It was quiet until you said it. How was I supposed to know that would happen? We needed to know what we're dealing with.
Fighting isn't going to help. It's a name, a word. It can't hurt us. It doesn't matter who said it. It already knew we were here. It was waiting. The name just focused its attention.
The unity they had clung to outside was fracturing. Their individual fears were driving them apart, making them suspicious of each other's actions and decisions. Deciding the church was no longer safe, they retreated into the foggy night. As they passed the row of derelict storefronts again, something caught Maya's eye.
Ben, hold on, don't turn around. Ben, there's something behind you, in the reflection.
Liam raised a high-powered flashlight, aimed behind Ben. The beam cut through fog, lighting an empty street. Nothing there. Absolutely nothing. But the window's shadow remained, unmoved by light. The shadow slowly lifted a long, thin arm and reached out, its fingers aiming for Ben's neck in the glass. Slow, deliberate, terrifying. Their first true sighting of an Umbra, a parasite of perception, a ghost in the glass, a silent shadow that had chosen its first target.
There's nothing there. You're seeing things, Maya. The fog is making you paranoid.
She's right, Maya. You're scaring us for no reason. We're all freaking out and you're not helping. We need to leave, now. We can't. The road is pitch black, we have no signal. It's more dangerous to drive than to stay.
The argument on the street devolved into a tense, resentful silence. The group, once bound by friendship, was now frayed nerves and pointed suspicions.
We can't fall apart. That's what it wants, to divide us.
This fracture was a victory for the town. The Umbra did not need to attack them with claws or teeth. It could simply amplify their own anxieties and watch them tear each other apart. The real horror was not just in the shadows, but in what the shadows made them become. The night deepened, the fog outside the van becoming an impenetrable wall of white. Ben, still trying to prove Maya wrong, continued to film the empty street. It was real. Maya hadn't been lying. The shadow in the reflection began to move. It glided across the glass, impossibly smooth, until it was directly in front of his own reflection.
Ben, what's wrong? Stammering. It touched me. The thing in the window. It was cold. So cold.
The proof was undeniable. The shadow was real, it was aggressive, and it had marked Ben as its own. The last shred of denial among them vanished, replaced by a unified, chilling terror.
The church mural, the symbols, the word Umbra. There has to be more information somewhere. Records, a town hall, a library.
In the center of the square stood a larger, more imposing structure. A two-story brick building with a wide porch and tall windows. It looked like the last occupants left in sudden, violent panic. They began their search, moving cautiously through the debris-filled rooms. Maya was drawn to the grand staircase. She felt a pull, the town's sorrow and fear coming from the upper floor. Something important was up there, something terrible. Maya ascended the creaking staircase, drawn by the palpable sense of dread. The others called for her to wait, but the pull was too strong. On the writing desk, illuminated by a single shaft of her flashlight, was a leather-bound book. It was a journal, open with a pen lying across its pages. This was the source of the feeling she had been chasing.
It's the mayor's journal, Elias Thorne, reading. They are in the walls, they are in the reflections. The whispers have stolen our sleep, and now the shadows are stealing our people. Reading. We tried the wards, we tried the light, but the darkness is patient. It learns, it feeds on our fear, and we are so afraid. I can hear them scratching at the door. Not the wooden door to my room, but the door to my mind. Reading. They call themselves the Umbra. They were not summoned. They were awakened. An old silence broken by our greed. The mine. It all started with the mine. We dug too deep. We woke the town's true founders. We woke the silent shadows.
The mine. That's why the town died. They dug for silver or coal or something and woke this thing up.
The mayor's handwriting grows frantic, chronicling the descent into madness. Thorne wrote, "The old symbols, wards against the deep dark. We thought them superstition. We were fools."
Noah, look, the church bell. It's still there.
Of course. It's perfect. The sound would be immense. It would vibrate through the whole town, through the very ground. It's not just sound, it's a physical force. Thorne wrote, "The light holds them back, but the silence lets them think." We were quiet in the church. The townspeople likely prayed silently, paralyzed by fear. We can't just bring the light. We have to break the silence.
It was a plan of two parts, requiring perfect timing and unwavering nerve. Noah would be the one to ring the bell. Maya's role was more subtle, but equally crucial. She was the trigger. The journey to the top of the church tower was a new ordeal. The Umbra used the confined space to assault their senses. Flickers at first, then multiple gliding shadows, tall, thin figures of blackness converging on the church. The Umbra had discovered them.
The rope is old, it might not hold. We might only get one chance to ring it.
The assault changed. The oppression deepened, a direct physical force. The silence that replaced them was far worse. A profound void of sound that seemed to suck the air from their lungs. Shadows actively tried to bring the tower down, to bury Maya and Noah under tons of rock and silence the bell. Their resolve was tested to its absolute limit. The longest night is always the one before the dawn. It is the moment when hope is at its most fragile, when the darkness feels eternal. But even the most absolute darkness must yield. The Umbra, creatures of absolute night, felt the approach of their ancient enemy. Their patient confidence gave way to seething, cornered animal anxiety. He was not just pulling a rope, he say. He was seeking vengeance for his friends. The wait was almost over. The final confrontation between the silent shadows and the coming light was about to begin.
Now, Noah, now.
As Maya's scream echoed up from the belfry, Noah threw his entire body weight backward, pulling on the thick, frayed rope with a desperate, grief-fueled strength. The sound was apocalyptic. It was not a chime. It was a physical explosion of sonic energy. The oppressive silence that had smothered the town was shattered. Simultaneously, the first rays of sunlight struck the gathered shadows at the base of the church. The Umbra were given a horrifying, fleeting substance by the pure light. The sunlight pinned the shadows, making them vulnerable. The immense, rolling clang of the bell hammered them, a symphony of destruction. Light and sound, working in concert to tear the ancient curse from the town's foundations. Down on the street, what had been Ben was caught in the open. It stumbled into a beam of sunlight. Its human form began to dissolve. For a final, fleeting moment, Ben's true face looked up toward the bell tower, eyes clear and grateful. He nodded. His body disintegrated into a swirling cloud of black dust. A sonic blast scattered the dust. The Umbra were being systematically erased. A century of fear and silence could not stand against sun and the bell's vibration. Their reality was being unwritten. He rang for Chloe. He rang for Liam. He rang for Ben. He rang until his hands bled and his muscles screamed in protest, each toll a final defiant goodbye to his friends and a death knell for the silent shadows. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, its light flooding the valley, the last of the Umbra were vanquished. And then, a new kind of silence fell over Eban Hollow. It was not the oppressive, hungry silence of before. It was a natural, peaceful quiet. The pain was gone. The curse was broken. The town of Eban Hollow, once a tomb saturated with despair, was now just a collection of old, empty buildings. A place of history, not of horror. It was at peace. They simply stood and held each other for a long moment, two survivors leaning on each other, their shared grief and shared victory, a bond that would never be broken. The deep narrator's voice returns, calm and reflective. And so, the silence was broken, not by a whisper, but by a roar. The curse was not lifted by magic, but by courage, by the refusal of two souls to surrender to the dark. They were saying goodbye, not just to their friends, but to the nightmare they had lived through. The town's soul, once screaming in torment, was now quiet. They had entered Eban Hollow as 5 thrill-seeking friends. 2 were now leaving as something else entirely. Older, sadder, but with a profound understanding of the thin veil that separates the world we know from the silent, waiting darkness. Liam was not at the wheel. Chloe was not telling bad jokes in the back. Ben was not filming their departure. The silence in the van was one of absence. They were returning from a war that no one else would ever know had even happened. Their shared secret was a burden they would carry forever, a shadow that would follow them even in the brightest sunlight. Days turn into weeks. Life, impossibly, goes on. They never speak of Eban Hollow, but it is always there, a silent presence in every room. He opens the audio file from the last moments of the recording, isolating the sound and amplifying it. He expects to hear only the cacophony, but as he filters out the extreme frequencies, he finds something else buried deep within the noise.
It's not over. They don't just die. They wait, in the quiet, in the dark. They always wait.
Noah stares at the screen, a deep, paralyzing chill spreading through him. The curse of Eban Hollow was broken, but the thing that had caused it was eternal.
Faint, static-filled whisper, unintelligible.